President Obama has proposed instating the Volcker Rule, which would limit trading activities of financial institutions to prevent another crisis.
Joining us now to weigh in on the Volcker Rule and its potential global impact is former Bank of England policymaker David Blanchflower. He is currently a professor of economics at Dartmouth College. We know that you go by Danny after the very famous football player, soccer player. Sorry, Danny, I have to say soccer since we're reporting from the U.S. What do you make?
It's okay.
Oh, it's all right. You're a good sport. But what do you make of this idea of the Volcker Rule? 1 out of 10 chances of it likely being instituted.
Probably about a 2. But clearly what we need to do is think, this has been the worst crisis ever. We can't have business as usual. We have to start to think about alternative ways of limiting lending. And particularly given what happened in Massachusetts, there are populist moves to prevent bankers and to try and worry about unemployment. So new measures and new ways of preventing us doing this all again are on the table. But this is a starter, if you like.
It's interesting that you say we need to find ways of limiting lending, since it seems like increasing credit is or was one of the Obama administration's main goals here.
Well, I think what we've done, we had over-exuberance in lending, and then we've got too little exuberance, and we have to find some kind of equilibrium, if you like. People have got to lend on sensible things, so we have to normalize stuff. Clearly, there's not enough credit going around at the moment, but down the road, are we going to generate another set of bubbles? That's the big point of the Volcker Rule, worrying about the medium to long term rather than the short term, where just around the world there isn't enough credit going.
So, Danny, even though it seems like there's only at least a 2 out of 10 chance, is what you just said, of the Volcker Rule being instituted, I mean, would something like this be good for the economy?
Well, something like this, so that we don't go back to make the same mistakes as we made in the past. I mean, in the UK, where I was last week, a tax on bankers' bonuses turns out to be incredibly popular. It's actually, the funding from it is going to be used to fund youth unemployment. And when polls were taken, 2/3 of the people supported it. So obviously there are some populist moves going forward, but it's really about thinking the systems that we had in place, the institutions we had in place, failed. It generated the worst economic crisis for 100 years. So if we don't go and take stock and change things, the same things are going to happen again. So it's absolutely sensible for Volcker to talk about that, but we're not going to be able to institute change very quickly, but change we must.
But it's interesting you talk about the short-term perspective versus the long-term perspective, and a lot of people are concerned, obviously these are people on the street, concerned that this will limit their ability to compete globally, that financial supermarkets will sprout up and grow to huge titans overseas, while we will, in effect, be hobbling ourselves here in the U.S.
Well, obviously that's the counter, if you like. But really, we've got to be more balanced. We've got to be careful to not generate something like this in the future. So think too much exuberance in the past, too little now something in between. And clearly, people are going to say bankers' bonuses, taxes are a bad thing. But if the public likes it and the public worries about unemployment politically, then these are the kinds of moves you're going to see people do. The question is, are you going to do it on your own? And it looks like every other country is going to do these same kinds of things too. The Chancellor of the Exchequer in the UK said, all these countries can't really act alone. They should be trying to act together.
Hang on a second. I mean, if you limit bankers' bonuses in London, aren't you afraid that they'll all move to Switzerland, which is a very nice place to live, or to Asia, which is also comfortable? And then there'll be less Aston Martin sales in London and less of the trickle-down effect of those bonuses spreading throughout the pubs and restaurants and industry in the city.
Obviously, that has been some of the reaction, but it appears that just about everywhere else is thinking the same things. The question is, how big are those bonuses, and are these other places more attractive? The logic would be the freedom to act by lending as you liked is what got us into this mess in the first place. This is really about trying to limit the effect on the people. The people have had to pay huge amounts of money to rescue the banks. You just can't let the banks do the same thing over and over again.
Danny, is it possible to have a kind of coordinated effort? You just made an allusion to that. I mean, is it possible for the UK, the US, Europe, Asia to kind of get together and come up with rules that everybody follows, or is that just a pipe dream?
Well, it probably is a little bit of a pipe dream, but I think the G20 was actually in that mode. My sense of talking to people who are part of it was that everyone's view is we're all in this together. It's been a global credit crisis. And I think the governments really do feel that it makes sense to try and coordinate together. And the other thing about where a bank is going to go, if everybody's in it together, no one can run anywhere. So I think this is really about trying to coordinate, because that has benefits for everybody. You're not on your own.
Danny, we thank you as always for joining us. Danny Blanchflower, former member of the Bank of England's Monetary Policy Committee.